Hey, hey, hey. Hey, what is up, people? I am so excited to be here with everyone tonight. Welcome to the very first episode of a new concept called Global Roundtable, where basically I just noticed this was actually inspired by teaching at Berkeley here in Valencia, Spain, that there's so many talented people from all over the world who are making amazing music, you know, in the school environment. They're collaborating with each other. And I was just kind of thinking about how, like, in the festival scene and just touring in general, it doesn't seem to be as diverse. And so I thought it would be really, really cool if we all came together today to talk about nerdy stuff, because nerdy stuff is universal. Music is the universal language. So I have three of my good friends here from around the world, and we are going to be talking about low end and a little bit about SUBPAC. So for anyone who doesn't know what a SUBPAC is, it is a magical personal bass bin, essentially. And it's really, really great for, apartment living. It's really good for pretty much any place where you don't have a massive sound system that you can play at any time of the day or night, right? So it's pretty handy in a lot of situations. And actually, they're about to release a new one in the next few weeks, which we're all super excited about. So let's kind of hang out. I wanted to introduce in the interview room, we have Luigi Tasso from Lebanon.
Hello. I'm Luigi from Lebanon. I'm a music producer, composer, sound designer, and I recently got into animation. My big project of the moment is called Genesis, which is what you might have seen a couple minutes ago. And it's an abstract animation on the evolution of the universe, merging together electronic dance music with film music and a visual storyline. And the project is not released yet, but will be released soon with additional tracks, one of which will be mixing and mastering today with Gio and KD.
Awesome. And then we have Giorgio Schipani from Italy, mastering engineer extraordinaire.
Hello, my name is Gio. I'm from Italy. And as Alicia just said, I'm a mastering engineer, mix engineer, system designer, and overall just nerd and passionate about audio, digital audio, and everything that makes noise. I've recently been working on a variety of different projects, mostly mastering from my own studio, and today I will be walking through one of the sessions with Luigi's work of a track called Helium, and stay tuned for that one.
Awesome. So I thought first we would kind of just talk about some general things about, we have to introduce KD. Last but not least. Sorry, my camera is kind of obscuring. He is the most important. KD.
Just the mix engineer.
I'm just mixing.
I'm so sorry. Kartikeya Dixit, please introduce yourself better than I did.
Hey, I'm Kartikeya. You guys can call me KD. I'm from India. I'm a mixing engineer, mastering engineer, and a music producer. And today I'll be just showing Luigi's song, like how I approach the mix, and show you all the tricks and tips that I use generally in all my mixes.
Awesome. Okay. Sorry. Now let's start all over again. So the main issue, which I think is universal, right? Whether you're a producer, whether you're just tuning in to hang out and support or just learn a little bit more, is the problem of bass, right? And bass is really tricky for a lot of reasons. And it's also, as a young producer in an apartment or something like that, it is one of the hardest things to dial in and get right. And there's also all kinds of issues when listening to it. So maybe, if one of you wants to start explaining to the general public exactly why bass is such a hard thing to get a hold of.
I'll take that one. Basically, the biggest problem has to do with acoustics, and specifically room acoustics. So when we think about frequencies of wavelengths, each segment of the frequency spectrum has a direct relationship with physical space that a waveform needs to travel in order for it to be present in the world. So the main problem with low end is that the smaller the amount, like the smaller the frequency is, the more space it requires. For example, let's take 50 hertz, which is We're like around the sub area, just like, you know, a subby kick drum, you know, a good girthy bass is the wavelength for that is around 22 feet or 7 meters. And unfortunately, not many of us in our rooms, in our own house, we have that space dedicated, space already, and then a good treated space that allows, you know, that frequency to be reproduced correctly, which means that we incur into room modes. We just have the, like, you know, the audio, the waveform bouncing around from place to place and kind of tricking our ears into thinking that maybe we have more low end than we need, maybe we have less. So that is kind of the problem, I would say.
Yeah, for sure. And then, of course, you know, in apartments, you can't necessarily have these like speakers or, you know, room treatment, especially if you're like a student living abroad. So, you know, I'd love to hear maybe from KD about like some of the challenges as a mix engineer that you faced, you know, living somewhere else and kind of trying to deal with an apartment and how you cope with that.
Oh, so many noise complaints. So whenever I'm mixing and I have to, like, for especially low end, like, I have to boost the levels on my speakers and my whole room shakes. I can show you. This is just cardboard. Like, all Valencia's walls are cardboards. So the whole room is shaking. So all your neighbors are like, oh, shut the music down. Yeah. So it becomes super difficult sometimes. So you have like specific times only when you can work. And but with SUBPAC, which I really liked, is like it's tactile vibration. So you just feel them on your body and it can give you a sense of what's happening in your low end.
Yeah.
And
How did that change? Like from before to after?
yeah, like, because I have a pair of Neumanns and they're 5 inches, so they can't really produce like lower than 50 hertz. So I'm always like second guessing and I have to like do so many tests on different speakers and systems. And sometimes I have to go to Berkeley because I want to check my mixes. And it just becomes like a cumbersome activity because you have to keep traveling and do this. With SUBPAC, which you lent me for like a month almost, I guess, and it was really awesome. And I could tell what was happening in my low end. Sometimes I remember like once I was mixing a song with Luigi and I was like, yeah, it's sounding great. And then once you give me the SUBPAC, I was like, damn, there's too much low end right now. So it could really help you make calculated decisions.
Yeah, for sure. I mean, and it's interesting because we're about half and half here. So both Luigi and myself have had SUBPACs for a few years now. I was super into SUBPAC from the day that it came out. I know a lot of my friends worked there and work there now, and it's just a super tight family crew. And I just remember like everyone walking around like the Bay Area with one and just going crazy about this new thing because San Francisco is a lot like Valencia, like apartments, shared walls, lots of people. So it was a big deal for that as well. And then Luigi, when did you get your SUBPAC?
I got mine about 3 years ago, I think.
Yeah. What made you decide to get it?
Well, they had this offer where you could get it for a month and test it and then return it for free. So I was like, why not? I'll test it for free and then return it. And I tried it for a month and I was like, I'm not returning that ever again. So yeah, it's been a great tool. And yeah, it's been great mainly for checking the balance of kick and bass in my tracks. And I feel like one trick I have is to turn the music completely off and to just channel the sound through the SUBPAC. And then you're just really feeling it in your back, and you can focus on determining whether the kick is too loud compared to the bass or vice versa. So yeah, it's been great for that, for sure.
Nice. And then Gio and KD borrowed from us and tried them out and tried their normal mixing and mastering routines. And yeah, tell us maybe a little bit about that experience.
Well, I personally have to say that it's been a bit of a learning curve because once you are used to your room and the sound of your room, you tend to start getting used to the sound, but at the same time even ignoring some things that might be problems, you know, because there is not such a thing as a perfect room. There are rooms that sound amazing, but there are rooms they still have some mistakes. And
By the way, mixing engineers are the worst at holding mics.
hey, usually we are behind the scenes. It's not a prior requirement for the job. But with the SUBPAC, I have to say that, well, first of all, it's an incredible experience because you feel the low end in your body. And I come from like my initial introduction to audio was in live sound, so SUBPAC kind of brought me back to what it feels like to be listening to music with a gigantic PA blasting music to your face, because you very much can feel the low end in your body, in your back, in your chest. I do have some concerns with this first edition of SUBPAC, because the fact that it's not fully calibratable. That means that you have to trust yourself and choosing some reference songs to set the level that you know very well, and then just go with that, because you end up getting used to the sound because it feels great, and then you end up cranking it up a little more, and that could lead you to make some decisions that might be great or might not work depending on the case. But overall, it's a great listening experience for sure.
Awesome. And Katie, you said that you kind of dealt with it. Like, how did you figure out that lack of calibration?
Yeah, it's, as Gio said, like I was doing the same thing when I got it. Like it's like once you use it, you set a level, and then you just want to increase it a little more because it feels so good. Yeah. But then you kind of are in the red lining area. You're like, oh, I'm clipping, and you don't realize it. So what I did was I took a song as a reference and then just judged the low end on that, like which is completely mixed and mastered. And from that, I built my mix from that. So it really helps you like judge the low end, but it's not too much at the same time.
Cool. Awesome. Well, actually, the nice thing about all those concerns is that I think that this new SUBPAC that's coming out in a few weeks is going to address all of them. So let's take a look. So first of all, we've got the old ones today because we're not cool. Actually, we are really cool, but they're just not out yet. And they are like, we are ready, right? But here's, oh, can I not scroll on this? Well, this is irritating. Let's just talk about it. So it has a calibration pack, and I'll try and scroll through this. It says that it is, let's see, software-driven controls for precision and customization. Let me try and fix this while I'm talking. Real-time control over filters, EQs, time alignment, and other advanced settings. Redesigned path and software optimization. Sorry, I guess it's not going to scroll. I'm just going to like deal with maybe moving it up a little bit so people can see what it looks like more. All right, that's as good as it's going to get, like this. Anyways, it is, and I'll bring up a browser later on. But yeah, so they have a lot more calibration. They have these new transducers, vibrotactile membranes. I mean, it's pretty slick because right now, the old one, it's great. I love it. It's pretty slick as it is, but I mean, there were a couple things with the cable. It used to kind of break off a little bit, and I was the worst for that. I used to trash them, and I feel, thank you SUBPAC for always helping me fix them. And they also have wireless multiple SUBPACs from a single module. So that's
awesome.
Yeah, because the worst thing about this is the little wire. You know, I'm constantly like sitting there and just going, oh, I didn't mean to. So anyways, that's going to be super cool.
I saw it's going to come with a new like monitor knob interface kind of thing, with like a whole control station for the SUBPAC as well, so that you don't have to try and tweak from the little pot on the side, but it's gonna be like very nice on your desk and you can change. That's pretty exciting. Also, we got an interesting comment from the audience saying that Luigi's hot, and we all very much would like to agree with that. So if you're a fan of Luigi, please go follow him.
Thank you to whoever said that. Thank you.
Okay, I fixed it. So we can at least look at this for a second. So yeah, that looks super, super sweet. I really can't wait to try that, and I can't wait to check out this calibration box. So for all the geeks, I'll just leave this up here for a second. SUBPAC's ultra low latency, lossless, wireless audio solution. Anyways, yeah, those are all really exciting things. And I think that I can't wait till they give it to me. So let's kind of get into some stuff. All right. I think first what we're going to do is check out Luigi. And Luigi's going to take us through a bit of his project. But I just love, we're going to show another one of his videos first. Tell us about this video that we are about to see.
So it's just a video showing a bit of my animation project. And then I also have, I think there's 3 videos in there, and the 2 last ones are like kind of performances that I made, where you see me performing, but also with a lot of visual stuff happening all over the screen. So basically, it's showing a bit of my music, my animation, and just in general a bit of my work.
Sweet. All right, let's check it out. All right, sweet. We didn't want to disturb you with our amazing voices. So I'm going to come back and sit here, and we are about to check out what Luigi is doing with his project. And yes, super psyched. All right. So Luigi, how's it going?
Good. So I'm going to be talking about this track that we'll be mixing and mastering today. And first, to talk a bit about my process of starting a new track. Recently, I've been starting my projects by just sitting at the piano and trying to come up with chord progressions and melodies or harmonies. And in the track that we'll be talking about, I started by playing this very simple 2-note pattern. And I decided that this 2-note pattern was gonna play for the entire duration of the track. This is something that I've been doing a lot recently, and it's something that we call drone notes in musical terms. And basically what it means is that it's notes that sustain through the entire duration of the track. And what's special about them is that even though these 2 notes are exactly the same every time they play, when the chord changes, the function of those notes change. And so we're perceiving those notes completely differently every time. Now, to talk about finding chord progressions, I try to never stick to one specific scale. And so, for example, in the case of this track, the scale is a natural C natural minor. And so what I will try to do is use as many notes that are not present in this natural minor scale. And in this track, for example, I ended up using the Phrygian scale as well, and the Dorian scale. And basically, the way I see scales is, it's like scales are color palettes, and if you're sticking to only one, you're limiting yourself to only one color palette. But if you're using several ones in the same track, you're kind of expanding the number of colors you're using in your track and your music. And in that specific track, I ended up, like I said, using different scales. But the thing is that I never think about scales when I'm writing chords. I'm really trying to just play around with my hands and let my ears lead me to those interesting colors. So it's not like I'm thinking, okay, I'm gonna go from a Phrygian to a Dorian to a Lydian. I'm really just playing around and letting my ears guide me. And so usually I'll write a chord progression and then I'll go back to it and analyze it to kind of understand better what's happening and why those chords are making me feel these certain emotions. Now for writing bass for this track, and maybe I should play the track beforehand. So I'll play the track right now. Okay, so for writing the bass of this track, since the piano feels very warm and heavy, I wanted the bass to kind of support that piano. So basically what it's doing is just playing the notes of that the low piano is playing. And it's a very simple bass. It really just does whatever I want it to do, which is basically just support. But if you can see here, my plugin is inside an instrument effect track. And so that's what I want to talk about next, is how I design my sounds to get the most expressiveness out of them. So what I'm going to do here is load up a new track and put a serum effect on it, a serum plugin on it. And I'm also going to load the bass notes on it. So now what you get is this really disgusting sound, but we're going to try to make this sound a bit better.
We love a disgusting sound.
And so before even going into Serum, I'm going to put this Serum patch in an instrument track. And what that does is create 8 empty macros for me to map to anything that I want. And then I'll go into Serum, and maybe I'll start by creating another oscillator. And then you can see that that's one thing I like about Serum, is that it gives you 4 additional macros to play with. So first I'm going to map this first one to maybe the cutoff. And one important thing about this process is that I pay a lot of attention to the ranges of these modulators. So I'll carefully choose the minimum and maximum of each range to get the most out of every knob twist. And so for the cutoff here, I'll adjust. Usually I'll spend a lot of time on that, but for the sake of this example, I'll just do things a bit quicker and a bit more randomly. Maybe I'll take the second macro to the detune of the second oscillator and adjust the range. Maybe I'll take the third one, or first let's map an LFO to the cutoff, adjust the range, and maybe map the third macro to the LFO rate. And again, adjust the rates. Maybe I'll take the fourth one to the octaves of both oscillators. And now I'm going to go back to the instrument track, and I'm going to map each of these 4 macros to the 4 first macros in my instrument track. And maybe I'll map as well the glide to another macro. And you can see here that it gives me a window where I can again adjust the ranges of everything. So that gives me like a second level of precision to set the ranges and everything exactly like I want. So again, I'll usually spend time on that, but now I'm doing it a bit randomly. And to get the most expressiveness out of my sounds, I try to always fill these 8 macros. I try to imagine these macros as kind of like, imagine a violin player who has 2 hands, where one hand is basically doing this kind of movement and the other hand is doing finger movement. So he's really only using 2 hands to get a lot of expressiveness out of his violin. And I try to look at my macros this way, as like modulators that are going to allow me to make my sounds feel a lot more human. So what I'll do, if I decided that I'm done with Serum and that's all I want to change from Serum, maybe I'll add a reverb to that instrument track. And since I want the reverb to be a separate signal, and I want to keep the dry signal from the original sound, I'll create an audio effect track, rename this to my reverb signal. Now I'll create another chain, which is my dry signal. And now what this gives me is an additional 8 macros to play with. So what I'll do, maybe I'll also load another effect on there on a third chain. And now maybe I'll tweak those a bit. And what I'll do is map other features of these reverbs and delays to this instrument, to this audio effect track. And now what we have is 16 controls that are controlling our sounds. But I like to keep things simple, so I try to always have a maximum of 8 knobs that I can control my sound with. So what I'll do is I will map some of these reverb features and echo features to some of the macros here. And so now again I get to adjust these values once more. I'll maybe turn down the feedback of those. And there's still one macro missing, but for the sake of this example I'll just keep it empty. But so this is where the real fun begins for me, because now I get to just close these and I only have 8 knobs to work with. And these are the 8 knobs that are going to control my sound. And what I'll do next is record kind of a performance where I'm playing with those knobs and changing the sound over time. And one thing that I always feel is that the more modulation, the more human this sound is going to feel. So what I'll do usually is map each of those 8 knobs to a physical controller, and that way I can record automation in real time. So I'll show you a quick example of how I would do this. I don't have a physical controller right now, so I'll just do it with my mouse, but it should show you the concept of it. So something is wrong with this serum. I think it needs to be updated or something. But
It is updated. It is updated.
But basically, you got the idea. So this is my technique to get more expressiveness out of any sound. And even if it's a trick specific to Ableton, it's a concept that you can apply to any DAW, whether it's Logic or Pro Tools or anything else. And basically, it's about choosing modulators that are going to modulate your sound, choosing how much they're going to modulate, and then basically recording those modulations to really get the most out of your sound. And this was my trick on sound design. Now to talk a bit about low end. So this track has mainly the elements that are playing in the low end are kick, bass, the piano, and the toms, or the orchestral percussion. And I used the SUBPAC to kind of balance all of those elements together so that they fit well. And like I said before, one trick that I have is turning the music off and just feeling it in your back. That way you can really focus on seeing whether the kick is too loud or the bass is too loud. And it also helps you to figure out if the side chaining is too long or not long enough, or if the sounds are clashing together. So yeah, for that the SUBPAC is really a great tool. And that brings us to KD, who's going to talk about mixing this track and specifically about low end.
Yeah. So awesome. Thanks for taking us through, Luigi. We're going to do a little switcheroo right now, and we're going to load up KD's mixing session. And he's actually worked to mix on this track. So yeah, Luigi can swap headsets. And while we're doing that, I'm actually going to load up one of his songs. Tell us a little bit about Celestial Teapot.
So this is my band from back home, Pune, Maharashtra in India.
Woo!
And we started out as like 4 friends making music in our bedrooms, and now we have more members. This track actually we wrote when 2 of our members were actually leaving for higher studies, and this is kind of like a love song, you can say, for us. Yep.
Okay, so we got KD coming up. He's going to take us through some mixing stuff. And so we're going to move from Ableton into Pro Tools, I believe. So nice, nice, nice.
Okay, so I'm just gonna show you how I approach the mix on my individual mix, processing and my master bus processing. So I would start with, like, first of all, the song is great. Like, if there are, like, the song, if it's very well produced, you don't have to solve problems in the mix, and this is like a very great example of that. I will started from here. Cool. So let me start with my mix plus processing because these are the plugins that are always on my mix. So first I use the virtual mix track by Slate Digital, and this has only the virtual mix track. Yeah. Then I have a bus compressor.
Hold on, we're gonna turn you up. We are having, I don't know why, but this has gotten so.
Check.
I hope, is that?
Check.
No, you're not coming in at all. Okay, so, yeah, it is line.
Believe it sounds.
Okay, now, try.
I think let's put that less.
I don't see anything.
Check.
That's better.
Yeah.
All right.
Awesome.
Sorry.
We got some levels going.
Yeah. Okay. So let me go through my mix bus processing again. First, I just use the virtual mix track, which just has this plugin. It's just like it's kind of emulating an analog desk, like all the non-linearities. Then I have a stereo bus compressor SSL. This one I really like. This is just to glue the mix together. Then I have an analog mix saturator plugin. Then this is a mastering EQ, which I didn't have to use too much, and I'm just making all the frequencies mono, just under 109. This is a waves plugin which I absolutely love. This is always on my mix bus, but I never change the dials, because if you read the manual, it just adds like a little bit of low end and a little top end, boosts it up, so it gives us a nice color. Then I have this guy, refinement, which is just taking out all the harsh frequencies. Then I have I'm just compressing it with a trusty Pro C2. Now here I have Pro MB, which is just taking care of the low end a little bit, just reducing just a tiny bit. And this is a Pultec style EQ. I'm increasing just a little bit of the low end. That's it. And this is one of my favorite plugins, Oxford Inflator. It just brings up everything in the mix, like it just increases the relative volume. If I'm just gonna play just a little bit of one section, I'll show you what it does. You can see this brings a tiny bit and just gives the life to the beat. If I bypass everything, I don't know, it makes the sounds kind of weak. Okay. So let's start with the kick. So the song, I think the kick and the bass are the main guys, which keeps the song like punchy. Let's see what's happening with the kick. I have a tape machine on, isolate. Same. These two plugins are there on all the tracks. Then I'm just compressing it a little bit. Yeah, this is like a very simple, easy compression. And this guy, I use this because this kick I felt I needed to get the low end out, and this plugin does the trick always. So I just set it to the lowest here and bring it up here through this knob. So if I take these guys off, so then comes the ride, which is pretty late in the mix here. I didn't really do anything because it sounded great. So, and hi-hats. Just a little bit of compression and fresh air just to get the high frequencies out so they're more audible. Then we have the snare here. Now I did a lot of things here. Let me see. Same two plugins. Great. Using an 1176 plugin just to compress it a little bit. This is my favorite distortion plugin, and it's from Pro Tools. It brings the average loudness so much up and makes it hit every time. Then I just wanted to get this, wanted to get the body out, so I used the EQ. Yeah. Then I used a little more of distortion because I love distortion. Yep.
Okay, controversy. Why Pro Tools and not Ableton?
Because Pro Tools rules. Like,
Star Wars.
Because I think in Pro Tools you can really manage levels better than Ableton. I mean, there's nothing against Ableton. Ableton is great. I love it. But it's so much more easier in Pro Tools.
Right.
Yeah.
Fair enough. I think a lot of people might be watching or watch this later who just don't know the difference or whatever. But I guess for your kind of mixing and
Yeah.
old school.
Old school. I mean, I have a bias. Like, I started with Pro Tools. That's why I think like I love Pro Tools more. But yeah, let's carry on. This is a great. Your PC is hanging. Yes, now we're back. So this is a plugin from Plugin Alliance. It's a subharmonic plugin. It adds low frequencies, like low harmonics to whatever the signal is coming, and I just wanted the snare to punch hit a little bit. That's why I added this. Then a transient shaper. I use this transient shaper because I'm using a lot of distortion and compression, and it's getting like the release, the sustain of the snare is coming too much out, and I didn't want that, so I reduced the sustain. That's it. Here I separated all the snares. Luigi gave me one stem and I just duplicated the track and separate them out because I wanted to treat every snare a little bit different. Let's see what's happening here. So this is like the breakdown part, like the later half. So I wanted the snare to hit harder. So it's basically the same processing but different levels and a little bit more. I'm compressing it harder. I love these taiko sounds. I had too much low end, so I cut this here. This again. And again, the sustain was too much on this, so I used this transient shape. It's like a super fast compressor. Then I distorted the fuck out of this with these two guys.
Fresh air.
Fresh air.
Fresh air. Attenzione, attenzione. A little bit of Italian. These interesting choices.
Yeah. Then I have a limiter also because I wanted to smack harder, and because it was kind of getting lost in the mix, with all the bass and everything. Even the small taiko. Here I use Pro C, and if you open this side chain, you can unlink the stereo link. If you see there on the left channel, the signal is less, on the right channel is there. So I wanted to compress it a little different. So if you unlink the stereo link, it compresses both the channel differently. It's a really nice feature in Pro C. And I think I have Fresh Air in everything. This is my new favorite plugin.
Fresh air, folks.
Yeah.
Fresh air.
Demonstration that free plugins can be the
Yeah.
one. You know?
Oh yeah, this is a free plugin.
Free plugins. Amazing.
So now this is my another favorite distortion plugin. This is again free. There are 3 different types of distortion that you can dial in, and what you can do is, crazy thing is, like, you can set in an LFO, and you can put this, and it kind of modulates between the levels of the distortion, which you can use it for like production or any creative side things that you want to do with the mix. Cool. So now all of my drums are going into a drum bus. I have my trusty API, just compressing a little bit. A little bit compression here, get the smack out, and more distortion. So I'm side chaining the kick and the taikos. And in Pro Tools, if you want to sidechain, you have to make a mono aux and send it to it, and then use a compressor. It's kind of a hectic process, but like, you gotta do what you gotta do, I guess.
You have a comment?
Well, this might be the one thing that Ableton does do better than
It
Pro
does,
Tools.
it does, it does,
Sidechain
it does, it
compression.
does, it does. And so many times I make like a stereo bus, and I go like, whoa, where is the sidechain? I can't. It sucks.
Pros and cons.
Pros and cons, yes. Okay. Now for bass, I didn't have to do much. I used the capitator because I just wanted to get the harmonics out. Kind of smashing it sometimes. Sounds good. Then I'm using Revival. It's like a harmonic enhancer. I'm using just a little bit of thickness and brightness to make it pop out more. Nothing too exciting. Guitars. Yeah. Let's just loop this a little bit. Yeah. Loop. Perfect. Same, these 2 plugins are there everywhere. Guitar, I just took out just a little bit of low mids out and push in the 3K up. This is this plugin again. Just use the stereo expanders to make it a little wider. Increase 6K a little bit. That's it. And pressure.
Of course.
Of
Of
course.
course.
Take a shot every time
Every
you
I say
use some
fresh.
fresh air.
Second guitar, similar things, but no pressure this time.
Oh, curveball.
I'm using a flanger, just I love that. Now for piano, I know Luigi loves piano, and in all his mixes he also asks me like, yo, can you push the piano up? Could you push the piano up?
Yeah, we always have to fight for where the piano is gonna sit. I always want it way too loud. He wants it way too
No, no.
quiet. So we always have to
It's
fight
like,
on that.
oh, push it 5 dBs more. I was like, bro, it's already too loud.
So how do you work that out? How does that conflict of choice resolve itself?
In a very mathematical way, if I want it 5 dB higher and he wants it 5
5
dB lower, we'll put it right in the middle.
Oh, that's so nice.
Cool. So, I remember Luigi said like he wanted the low harmonics of the piano to come out. So I used a decapitator to excite it and then just cut a little bit of the low end because it was getting too much. And for high piano, let's just hear it. Let's just hear the low by itself. Sounds good, but if you put the distortion, it just pops out just a little bit in the mix. High, I'm just getting just the low end a little bit because the low piano is already taking care of that. I'm using a mix bus compressor, SSL, just to compress it just a little bit. I'm using a Pultec style EQ better maker. This is my favorite EQ by Plugin Alliance. Boosting just a little bit of low end and increasing a high end a little bit, and the low mids cutting just a little bit. And with this, nothing too exciting, just cut 500. This is like a cheat code plugin, I think, by Waves. This is a cheat code. So without it, it sounds like this. Piano centric just makes it really cool. So there's a delay unit which is going on and a doubler, and it adds a slight EQ to it. It just sounds perfect. And it's just one knob, you don't have to do anything. And then I'm using an Oxford inflator because as Luigi loves his piano so loud, I had to use this.
I sense some passive energy unresolved. Do you need to talk about it?
I mean, I love pianos, I love piano.
Oxford inflator too. I'm using one because why not?
Okay. Then ARPs. Let's go to the ARPs. Nothing too fancy here. I'm just cutting low end a little bit. Let me just play this. Compressing it a little bit. And distortion, of course. Oh, for this I'm using this. Everything pumped in, and I think I just twisted the knobs till I felt it was sounding cool. Fancy. Oh, it's not even doing anything. It's just bypass that. Cool. Mag. This is another cool plugin from Plugin Lines, and you can set the airband to 40k and increase it. And it's such a gentle shelf, and it boosts the high end so gently that you can feel the air and it's not too harsh. I love this. So, and this is a stereo widening plugin. Increase the stereo width. And the same thing here. This SFX ribbon. Let's see what this thing is doing. Luigi wanted this really low in the mix, but you had to still feel it, so that's why I increased the high end. That's it, so you can feel it but not really hear it. And then I just used a little bit of flanger. Cool. Now choir I didn't even touch. It sounded pretty good, so I didn't have to do anything there. Strings, see, just a gentle cut there, and just taking out all the resonances because strings can sometimes get out of control. Fancy. Then Zenpad. Let's see what I'm doing there. Again, cutting a little bit of low end. Fresh air, take a shot.
What a surprise!
And I'm just side chaining this guy, and I think I have automated it. It only comes when the drop comes, so this just cuts it out like this, so the drop hits harder. And FX. I think I'm just using these guys. These are also shimmer authorize.
We just reinstalled a bunch of plugins and installers, and I don't know that we finished all of them. So sorry, that one might not work yet. We might have to install it again.
No worries. Oh, it is working now. Amazing.
Weird. This is what happens when you try to run 3 people's things with 2 different iLocks, and like there's basically like a spaceship hub of iLock USBs in my computer right now. It's like the bridge of Star Trek.
I think I'm just using shimmer just for this part, so I've automated that, and I'm using this another cheat code sidechain plugin that you can use, and I timed it just for this bit later.
To make up for the fact that you can't sidechain easily?
No, you can. Just this feels natural. No.
Someone took a sound design class and then thought, bumper knob.
Oh, bigger, louder.
Cool. And again, now let's see what's happening in the mix first. Here it's just compressing just a little bit, not too much. It's just gluing everything up. Just adding a little bit of distortion, harmonic distortion throughout the song. You can't really feel it. You can just feel it a little bit, not really hear it. Here I'm again just cutting, making all the frequencies below 109 mono. Just helping Gio out so that he doesn't have to do that. This is just adding a little bit of texture. See, if I bypass it, I haven't touched any of the knobs. Brings it up. Just resonance control, harshness control. And here I think, just to control the stereo channel a little bit, I'm slightly compressing it. I'm using the internal sidechain, and I'm compressing more of the high end, not the low end. just boosted it a little bit just to bring everything up a little bit. And this guy just brings everything, makes everything louder and punchier. Yeah. That's it. And then I'm just gonna bounce it and give it to Gio to master it.
That is amazing. Yeah. Super, super cool from KD. And honestly, I haven't used Pro Tools in years, so pretty cool to check that out. So we're going to switch over and we're going to check out, this video has no sound, but maybe you can tell us what it is about.
So, very briefly, I was in a beautiful studio in the mountains a couple of weeks ago, and I just set up a time lapse of my routine setting up the studio for a tracking session in the morning. And you can see me just like plugging in a bunch of things, turning on stuff, and writing on my notebook, which is by far my favorite like piece of gear. My little notebook, pen and paper, to write down everything that needs to happen. But that's it. That's pretty much it. And then I'll take you through my mastering session.
Nice, nice, nice. All right, they're going to switch off and we're going to check out this video. Go ahead, start going. It's a short video, so we got a short amount of time to swap projects, but we can just blah blah after that. So this is Gio basically setting up, and beautiful studio, nice notebook. Yeah. And Luigi, like, how do you feel about the way the mix turned out?
I think it's shit, to be honest. No, I'm kidding. We like to joke around and say that, but I think it sounds amazing. One problem that I always have with my music is making it sound like punchy and making really the low end kind of hit where it's supposed to hit and as much as it's supposed to hit. And that's one thing that KD really helped with. He can really get this tightness in my mix that I'm looking for. So working with him has been really great in that way, yeah.
Yeah, and you think that it ended up being a compromise, or was like, were there points where you kind of saw his point or he conceded, or was it like fairly equal?
I would say it was fairly equal. There was sometimes back and forth, but we always found this middle ground where we both thought it sounded good to our ears. So yeah, I guess equal.
Cool. Sweet. And then, what from your perspective, how much compromise versus coming around?
Not a lot, actually. We both want what's best for the song. And sometimes I have some concerns like, piano is louder. So I just tell him, and then I've sent him 2 bounces, like this is one with louder piano and one with lower piano. Listen to it for a week and then tell me which one do you like more. And it's the artist's call finally, always, like, and he likes more piano, so I'm like, okay, just put it up a little bit more. But we still make it work because all the other elements are playing together with it, so piano doesn't feel overpowering, but it's the center of the whole song, which is, I think, what Luigi wanted.
Yeah, it's really quite amazing. How's it going there, Gio? You loaded up? Sweet. All right. So let's check out. Tell us about what you are using. I think a lot of people don't even understand the whole world of mastering programs. Like, we're here arguing about Pro Tools versus Ableton, and now it's like, what is this?
So this dot here is called Wavelab. It's
Quiet again. You're quiet again.
Why am I quiet?
I don't know.
You have to switch on the receiver.
Oh, is it muted?
Wonderful.
There you go.
Fantastic.
All right. No more feedback this time. We got it.
Perfect. All right. So here is my workstation. I work in Wavelab, which is a DAW design for editing and mastering specifically. The reason why, it's because its workflow is awesome in the sense that you have everything that you need right in front of you. So here you can see there's a loudness meter, here there's a level meter, a phase scope, there's like a live spectrogram. There's a whole bunch of things that are useful when we talk about mastering. So the main question is that when people ask, so what do you do in mastering? The real answer is as little as possible. Realistically, I know already, I've already listened to this session, to this mix, and there is not a whole lot of things to do. And this is what I want to talk about as well. Because if a mix is absolutely perfect, then mastering just needs to be there to bring it up to the level that a level that is commercial, that is safe, that it's a lot of what we do is make sure that everything plays correctly on streaming platform, on CDs, on vinyl if need be, on cassette and whatever kind of medium that is required. And mostly we try to take care of what is, balance. Let it be like loudness balance, let it be spectral balance, tonal balance, harmonic content, just to make sure that there is no offending frequencies, there is nothing that kind of stands out to your ear more than it should, and just to make sure that the final product is, bright and sparkly and exciting in a way, and, bring it a little more life. But again, because the mix was really, really awesome, I decided that I'm going to actually be using most of the same plugins as KD was, just to demonstrate that at the end of the day, it's not about the plugins that you use or what you do. It's just that we just need to make sure that this track can be played in the most possible different systems. Let it be the crappiest, shittiest Bluetooth speakers, or like a really nice hi-fi system in whatever studio or whatever home setup. So the first thing that I do usually is, we're now going to take an actual listen through to the entire mix, because we want to listen to what it sounds, the whole thing. But the very first thing that I do is that I just check out here the waveform. We don't mix and master with our eyes, but the waveform can give out some information that can be useful. So as you can see here, there is no instances where there is anything that is particularly offensive. Maybe here there's a little spike that could be taken care of maybe later on, but not really, because everything is quite healthy and safe. So we begin with everything, just all the plugins are bypassed, and we just take a listen through.
You just turned the SUBPAC on.
In the meantime, you can have a look at the screen. Here we have a level meter. It's a K14 weighted. Here it's a VU meter. Here there's a phase scope. You can take a look at, there's a spectroscope here. Spectrometer. All right, so as Alicia said, I turned on the SUBPAC because I wanted to feel what the low end sounds like, and there is quite a lot of information going on. So as we can see here, now the very first thing that I want to do is that, you know, what we want to achieve is, you know, a sort of like commercial level. Here I like to use, I have a bunch of different meters, but I like to use like a classical style VU meter calibrated at 10 dB of headroom, which means that when the needle hits 0 here, it means that we have 10 dBs of headroom before the 0 full scale. So like a comparison between an analog meter and a digital meter. So the very first thing that I'm gonna do is that I'm gonna bypass all of these plugins one by one. And how do I achieve the level that I want? I just pull up the simplest gain plugin, stock gain plugin, and I just play here within a section that is quite loud. Okay, and I check that more or less we're gonna hit around the 0 dB point. So that's a starting point there. Okay, so that works more or less, because we're gonna add a lot more things that are going to introduce some more harmonic content and some more loudness. So starting from there, now here I have this plugin that is called Game Match that sadly is not opening, but this is a plugin that also Alicia and I are giving away. So whenever you get a chance, if you take a look at my Instagram at Sound by Gio, there's my last post where you basically can win this plugin, which is fantastic because it lets you monitor your sound. It compensates the gain that has been added by the plugin, so that you can make sure that what you're doing and what you're introducing to the track is actually making it sound better and not just louder. Because, you know, we're humans, our ears work like a kind of an inbuilt compressor, so the louder things are, the better they sound. That's just physiological, and you know, louder is better.
It's true. Yeah, and sorry again, we tried to install everybody's iLox and plugins to get them up to date, but this is a really cool plugin, and maybe we'll talk about it a bit too before we go. And yeah, giveaways are great.
Right. So the very first thing that I'm gonna do here is that I'm just gonna check, because there is a couple of frequencies that are a little like could be taken care of. So the very first thing I'm taking care of is the low end. Like I'm gonna add a little low cut here, just nothing too crazy, at, you know, 20 hertz, something around that ballpark, just to get rid of that low rumble that we don't particularly need, because it's not realistic, it's not going to be played through anywhere. And then just taking a listen, taking care to a couple of frequencies here. There you go. So here I was whistling it before. It's these are some kind of frequencies that are like persistent. There it is, persistent, and they're not exactly in the harmonic series that should be with the song. So what I'm doing is I'm just creating some dynamic bands, so that when these frequencies pop up a little too much, we just take care of them. Here we go.
This is giving me like Massive Attack vibes.
So here I started processing in mid-side. So I'm taking care of this section here. It sounds where there's a there's a little bit of the piano, there's a little bit of the snare, and it's nice. So I'm just giving it a little boost, like a very gentle boost here, very wide Q, so it's not doing any particular damage. And that's it for DQ. For now, it seems good enough. Right, so the next thing, I'm gonna use a bus compressor here. I don't wanna do too much work, so I'm just gonna do a couple of dBs of gain reduction. Here, as you can see, I set up like a sidechain filter so that everything underneath 62 Hertz is not triggering the compressor. It's still gonna be compressed, but that information is not triggering the compressor. Without the compressor, with the compressor. It opens up a bit, it glues it a bit together. So here I'm using a multi-band compressor. Right. So this is just to control a little bit of the sub frequencies. As you can see, the attack is set pretty slow because I don't want it to affect the pf of the compressor. I just want it to control the low subby frequency, but I don't want to fuck with the attack of the kick and the attack of the bass. So it's just doing a little bit, and I'm taking it down just a touch because then I'm going to push it a little bit with another EQ instance. So I'm going to exaggerate this a little bit for you, but what we're doing here is that I just want to push a little bit of 60 Hertz just to keep that thump of the kick, to make it feel chesty. And having the SUBPAC, this is actually really nice because every time that the kick hits, I can just feel it in my chest and feel it, like completely feel it. And here, I'm just boosting a little bit of the high end because this is just livening up the track a little bit. Here I have a bandwidth, like, so the Q of the EQ is quite broad. And attenuating a little bit. This is, I start from my favorite preset from this EQ is called the Drew Lane Track Warmer, and then I start from there, and then I work my way from there on. And then here, so I'm gonna boost 10K almost to the max, and then bring it back until it feels good. Keep an eye on the meter here. See, now we're getting to a level that is where it should be. So next up, some saturation. So if you can see, my session is pretty simple. We're not doing much. The first things are corrective, clean. There's not much coloring added. There's an EQ to take care of some frequencies. There's a compression to glue the track a little bit together. There's a little more compression to take care of the low end in particular. Here, there's not much to do. It sounds great as it is. So we're just like enhancing some features that the mix already has. So here with the Oxford inflator now, this is just, as KD was saying, this is magic. I have it on everything. It sounds amazing. What does it do? We don't know particularly. I've run it through a bunch of analysis tools. It just makes everything sound phenomenal. Black magic
plugins.
Right. So I'm gonna play without and then with. So here what it does. And it's just opened everything up. just gonna add a little bit more compression. That's it. I just want to compress, not this one. Apologies. Where is it? Compressor. There we go. And I'm working in mid-side because I really just want to compress this center mid band just to bring it out a little more. And that's pretty much it. So the last thing we do is just want to check the... So now obviously we've introduced some more level through plugins. So what I want to do is I'm just going to reel back this gain here. Bring it back. Okay, so the very last thing that I'm going to do here is that I'm just going to add this EQ here. And this is a little bit of my secret trick that I'm going to share with you. I am going to enhance some frequencies in a dynamic way, especially the low end, so that when you hear a track and it's like a clap track and it's like, oh, that mix is like super dynamic and it sounds like the mix is moving. It's just this little kind of things that I'm going to boost the low end with a shelf just in a dynamic way, so when it hits it pumps a little bit but not too much. A little bit the same with the like the mid-range with dynamic bands, so the mid side of both there, and then enhance in the same way the highs but just on the side channel. So this is how I do it. Okay, now check, can you hear the snare here? Check out the difference without this EQ and with. Hear the snare, it's like, every time it hits, it comes up. And that is it for me. Basically, yeah, as you can see, there is, in terms of loudness, we're not at -14. Shouldn't be mastering at -14. We're around, minus 12, minus 11. It's a little louder. This is not a super dynamic track, so that means that we could bring up the overall loudness without having it clipping and peaking and doing weird things. But yeah, that's it.
Awesome. Thank you so much, Gio. I hope everyone else is enjoying. For people just tuned in, we've been listening to Luigi Tasso from Lebanon. He's been explaining to us his amazing techniques for writing chords and composing, and we had KD explain us a really good mix, and then we had Gio just take us through some mastering. So I'm going to do a last little section about creative sidechaining, and it's going to be a little bit different. And to be honest, we wanted to do this continuous thing and all work on the same track, but Luigi's track was so finished already, I didn't really think that we needed to do any more sidechaining. So my friend Monar from Mexico has kindly donated her stems, and while I change over, the boys are going to talk maybe about some low-end containment and control tips for people that are kind of at home, with not much setup. Maybe just talk about like some ways that you can get around not having all the tools and get a better mix.
Right. So my first piece of advice is if you have any sort of form of budget that you can spend, don't spend it in weird fancy stuff. Just spend it in anything that can be used to absorb and treat your room. Room treatment goes a long way. You can mix in like the cheapest range of what's acceptable in speakers, but if your room is not treated minimally, you're gonna have trouble, because you can have massive speakers you push up, it's gonna just resonate everywhere. That, and then I would say mix at a reasonable level to control.
Never on a high level, because that's gonna excite the room more and it's gonna bring out the flaws of the room more. And reference. I think you need to reference your mixes in different monitors, and it's gonna be a long ride because your room is not treated. But once you start understanding your room, and with referencing in different monitors, you will have a better idea of your own mix.
In my personal workflow, every day I start, before I start working, I have a playlist that is songs that I know really well, and I listen to music for 15 minutes just to wake up my ears, wake up my brain, and just understand what the room sounds like. This is in terms of control. Then I guess headphones is a good way to control your low end and make sure that all the details that could be once you're in your headphones, the room doesn't matter. You could be in whatever room or you're not, outside, and it doesn't come into account that much. What about you, Luigi? What about for production stuff?
One tip that I have is testing your mix on as many different sound systems as possible. For me, I have my speakers. I have my iPhone speakers, probably the shittiest ones. I have my laptop speakers. I have my little iPhone earphones. I have 2 pairs of headphones, and then I have Bluetooth speakers. And I try to always check a mix on every one of those different sound systems, because even though some of them are really shitty, they will tell you something about your mix. So really, I try to really listen to every one of those sound systems and get at least one thing out of it, like one piece of feedback to change in my mix. But yeah, that's really my one big advice to give. For low end in general.
Awesome. Yeah, I mean, I totally agree, and I think I have like the loudest voice of anyone, so I'm gonna just turn myself down a little bit because I have teacher voice. But yeah, so I'm really excited for everybody that has come here tonight. I think it's just so amazing to see how we can all come together and collaborate, and there are really no limits to what you can do. It doesn't matter where you're from, right? But the truth is that sometimes I think we rely so much on the people we know and we don't expand our network. So I hope you've kind of enjoyed just meeting people